In this episode of the Courageous Public Health Podcast, Daphne Robinson, attorney, former juvenile prosecutor, public health professional, reflects on what it means to tell the truth about a system she once served from the inside. Through her book, she challenges colleagues, questions long-held assumptions, and names the way Black children are treated differently in juvenile court. We talk about why public health belongs in the courtroom, what justice requires beyond punishment, and why she believes even this difficult moment may one day lead to reconstruction. You're listening to the Courageous Public Health Podcast, episode 49. To all the courageous women leading in public health, this podcast is your space to turn up the volume on your courage. This space centers your voice. This space celebrates your passion. This space amplifies your courage. My role? To listen, to amplify, and to stand with you in the fight for equity. My name is Dr. Christy McClamrock. I am an epidemiologist, consultant, the founder and CEO of Courageous Public Health, and the host of the Courageous Public Health Podcast. Each week, I have real, unfiltered conversations with women in public health about the challenges you face, the power you hold, and your vision for the future. We talk about the authenticity, vulnerability, and courage that you bring, not just to public health, but to every part of your lives. Because courage is about action, even in fear. It's about taking up space, leading unapologetically, refusing to be erased, and knowing you never have to do it alone. If you're ready to turn up the volume on your courage, if you're ready to take up space, if you're ready to smash the racist, patriarchal, cisnormative, heteronormative, ableist, capitalistic systems, then listen to this new episode. Welcome to the Courageous Public Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Christy McClamrock. This podcast exists because courage is already everywhere in public health. It's just rarely named, supported, or treated as a leadership skill. Women are making high-stakes decisions inside complex systems every day, often without the infrastructure they need to do that work sustainably or visibly. Through Courageous Public Health, I partner with organizations to strengthen leadership capacity by helping women move from pressure-driven and fear-based decisions towards action grounded in values, clarity, and integrity, even when the systems around them haven't caught up. Today's conversation is a perfect example of that kind of leadership in action. So I'm going to share a little bit about our guest, and then we will get started. Daphne Robinson is a nationally recognized attorney, public health strategist, and business consultant with a career spanning federal and state judicial clerkships, prosecution, private practice, public health policy, and nonprofit leadership. She is the founder of Daphne Robinson Training and Consulting and the creator of Her Next Chapter, a summit for Black women lawyers. She is also the author of Delinquent: How the American Juvenile Justice System is Failing Black Children. You ready to get into it? Okay, let's go. Hi there, Daphne. How are you? How are you doing?
Hey, Dr. Christy, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
Well, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we connected some months ago. I was actually reading your book, which I'm going to hold up here.
Yay.
It's called Delinquent. Yes. How the American Juvenile Justice System is Failing Black Children. I was reading this and then I came across you on LinkedIn and I was like, I really want to have this person on the podcast.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're so welcome. It took us a little while to schedule it, but I really appreciate that you kind of circled back around with me and now here you are. So always good when that happens.
Yeah, it worked out.
It did. It totally worked out. So I want to start by having you introduce yourself to our listeners.
Well, you'll probably do a lot of editing. Well, I mean, I guess I can say that I am Daphne Robinson. Sometimes I lead with, I am a native of Mississippi. A lot of people have preconceived notions about what Mississippi is like, what the people there are like. And even more specifically, I'm from the area called the Mississippi Delta, which is known to be one of the poorest areas in the country still. And but I'm also a lawyer. I've practiced law in Louisiana for the last 30 years. I am the daughter of Eddie and Canary Robinson. They've both passed on. My mother passed away in 24. In 23, my father passed away in 24. And so, yeah, I'm just a Southern lawyer. Mm-hmm.
You're just a Southern lawyer.
I know. I mean,
yeah,
you can go on. I can go on and on with, I like to believe there's some
what
level
an incredible
of
understatement that is. Okay.
I like to believe there's some level of humility, in me still.
I see that. I see that humility.
I was a prosecutor a long time. I think that's how a lot of people know me. I was a prosecutor for almost 25 years in 3 different jurisdictions in Louisiana, in Orleans Parish, Rapides Parish. That's where I was prosecuted the longest, and I was chief of the juvenile section there. And then the last 5 years was in Caddo Parish, where the city of Shreveport is. It feels like I did time. But I stepped away from it in I guess that was probably about 2020. I think I just had enough of it, and I'd had a really bad accident. And that's when I wrote the book. And after I wrote the book, it was the place where I could put a period. It was time. It was just time for me to go. And so I did, and I'm glad I did. I pass by the courthouse all the time, and I think, Lord, thank you for delivering me.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and so we actually have, that's another connection that we have is through Shreveport. So my dad, oldest of 4, grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana. My grandparents lived there until they died. I still have one family member there who I think might not be there for very much longer, but I've spent a lot of time in Shreveport. I know it really well. And that was also, one of the things that caught my attention was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, we were fated to cross each other's paths.
Clearly. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I will say, a little shout out to Shreveport, Louisiana for that.
Yeah. I mean, I actually like Shreveport. Yeah. I mean, I think Shreveport is a cool town. It also gets a bad rap.
It is a cool
because of it does have a pretty good level of violent crime there. But I've lived in a number of cities, as you can imagine, in Louisiana, and I actually prefer Shreveport in the North Louisiana area to the South Louisiana area. Most people know about New Orleans, but they don't know very much about this area. Yeah. And my parents were from they were from this area. They were from Claiborne Parish. Both my parents were. And then they moved to Mississippi in the 1950s. And then they decided that when I graduated from law school and got a job and I could take care of myself, that they decided they were going to move back to Louisiana. And they moved back to the very area where they were from. I live in their home now. Once they passed away, my brothers gave it to me. And so I live here and am surrounded by memories of them. And I'm still trying to decide whether or not this will be, the last place that I live. I probably will relocate to someplace else. I just haven't decided where yet. It won't be Shreveport. But hopefully it'll be someplace else. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that you're still in your family home. That's really great. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I also want to just point out that you're also a public health professional. You have a master's degree in public health, and you bring your public health lens to the work that you do and the work that you've done in the justice system, which I think is really, it's a really powerful way to use public health training.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. went to Emory University, the Rollins School of Public Health. It was a great experience. I started in 2013. I think I was still practicing law, still a prosecutor, and they had an executive MPH program, and I was at a point in prosecuting juvenile cases because that's what I've always prosecuted. That I have no desire. I didn't have any desire at the time or now to prosecute adult cases. I've done a few, but I just found no redeeming value in them because the goal is strictly to punish. And so for me, in juvenile court, the focus was on rehabilitation of youth. And so I could tolerate it a little better. But what I began to see in juvenile court were young people who were continuing to come back into the system. It was just a revolving door. And I needed to learn more about why and how we prevent kids from going deeper and deeper into the system. And so I felt compelled to go either to social work school or to go to public health school. And I decided that I would take the public health route, and I'm very glad that I did. It really informed. I hope you didn't hear that big old truck. I live on a very busy highway, but it really informed it just opened my eyes to the things that we were doing wrong in the system. I mean, one of the things that we'll say as lawyers and judges in the criminal justice system is that we are not social workers. It's not my job to determine whether or not this person has a mental health issue, but really the court system is the biggest social service. And all of us should have some information about public health and just the behavioral health, mental health, because we see it all in the system.
Right.
And so when I got back after public health school to doing the work, I mean, I was still doing the work, but once I had completed my degree and then returned to the criminal justice system in Caddo, I was like, we're never going to get this right. I felt like John the Baptist, crying in the wilderness that we're never going to get this right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that was why I went to public health school. And that was also why, I decided to leave the criminal justice system too, because until we get it right, it's just not a place where I want to spend my time. I think I can do better outside of the system trying to help. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a powerful realization. And then, a powerful shift in your trajectory and in your direction.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and the cases just were getting harder, and the level of crime, the young people, and I mean, children who are younger than 18, the level of crime that they were committing was getting more serious, and the punishments were becoming more punitive, and we weren't really taking the time to think about, does this kid have a mental health problem? Well, if he does, is putting him behind a fence and behind a wall going to improve that mental health problem, or is it going to make it worse? And more often, than not, it made it worse.
Well, I feel like we've already veered into our first question here, but let me go ahead and ask it just okay. I will formally ask it. And I always like to preface this by saying, just reminding everyone that there's a difference between bravery and courage. So bravery is acting without fear, and courage is acting despite fear. And I'm really interested in, some of your examples of acting courageously, both in your personal life and in your professional life. So you've hinted at some of them, but yeah.
Right.
I would love to know more about that.
Well, I think people who decide to become lawyers, particularly prosecutors, even defense lawyers, that you have by your nature, this idea that you want to right some wrong. And so I'm not one who shirks away from trying to right wrongs, or at least what I perceive as being wrong. I think, people will say it took courage. So I'll say, I think one of the courageous things that I have done, at least in the last, 10 or 15 years, is that I decided to write a book, and I wanted to expose what I saw as the flaws and the problems in the juvenile justice system. And I was inspired to do that by reading the book, The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. And in the book, she gives us, she throws out a charge to those of us who worked in, the juvenile justice system, or who've worked in women's corrections, to do the same thing. And so I decided that I wanted to write a book about what I saw as, the problems inside of the system. And I guess it took a little courage, because I was critical of folks that I worked for and I worked with. Shreveport is not a large city. And Alexandria, the other city I work in Louisiana, is not a large city either. So I'm sure that people maybe saw themselves in the faces, or, saw themselves in the pages of the book. And so maybe it took a little courage to do that, but I thought it was important to tell the experience that I had, so that other people who work in the system could, feel free to tell their experiences as well. And to reveal that, because in the process of writing the book, I did so much research about how children, particularly children of color, had been treated in the juvenile justice system, even before there was a juvenile justice system. And realizing that it wasn't just my imagination, that Black children are treated differently from white children in the system. And that, because I think that's what people will try to make you believe when you're a prosecutor. Even if you're a Black prosecutor, people will try and say to you that, we're really not treating, Black children differently. We've got a Black prosecutor. We've got a Black judge. In the last courtroom I was in, the judge was Black, the prosecutor's Black, the public defender's Black. But at the end of the day, the way that the law is applied still favors children who are not of color. And so, and you can only work within the confines of the law. So that would probably be it. The courageous thing I did. Mm-hmm. And there are people who still don't speak to me to this day, because they saw themselves in the pages of the book. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. If that's the price of speaking your truth, then so be it.
Yep. Now, I did it when I left.
That's courage too.
Fortunately, I did it when I left the system, so I could say, take that. and I had the privilege of being able to walk away, but it was still hard, it was still hard. And I probably didn't say, I could have said so many other things, having done the work for as long as I did, but I guess those were the things that were top of mind.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I've maybe mentioned on some of the previous episodes, but I'm actually working on writing my first book right now too, and it's a memoir, and it's about intergenerational trauma, and so it's similar in the sense that I am also naming some difficult truths in my family and in systems. And that does take courage. It does take courage. I feel that in a very specific way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me,
but it's so important.
It is. And for me, the process of writing began, and I'd say in the book that I was let go from my job as the chief prosecutor in Alexandria Rapides Parish. And I like to consider it political. There was a change. I suppose that would be this other courageous thing that I would say, is that I openly supported someone else against the person that everybody said was going to win. And he won. But I did not feel like he would be the best person to serve children in the system. I didn't think he would be a very good DA, but so I made that choice. And as a result of making that choice, I was asked to leave that job, and it was hard. I mean, I had sat in the same chair for almost 20 years in one location, and so but and I held a lot of resentment, I guess, towards a lot of folks as a result of it, because I felt like everybody knew that I was going to be let go, and I was. I mean, I knew it was going to happen eventually, but I didn't think it would happen like within the first 2 weeks of the new DA taking over. And so the process of writing helped me get past the anger that I felt. It was very, very cathartic, and now I don't think about it. I rarely think about the experience.
Yeah.
But before that, it was something I thought about a lot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like, writing can be part of the healing, and that's not something that I was necessarily expecting either in such a profound way.
Right.
But it's
right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's true,
bonus.
and I think what we learn, from, in, those moments and those acts of courage, or, what we look back on and say we're courageous, is that, because most of the time there are moments that change the course of your life. And you think at the time, or at least for me, I thought at the time that it would kill me, because, when you have been in a position of authority, and, in Louisiana, they give you a badge as an assistant DA. You're respected when you walk in the room. People, think you're the judge when you're in the courtroom. And I'm like, I'm not the judge. But so, it was hard. And we become so connected to titles. And it was hard to let that title go.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really hard to let that title go. And I think, but then when you look back on it, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. I mean, what was perceived as the worst thing, in my professional career turned out to be the absolute best thing that could have happened to me professionally, because it freed me to be able to say what I want to say and to do the work that I absolutely love now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Thanks.
So I want to, yeah. So I want to ask you another question, and this is certainly related to courage, but I think courage is not just about taking action despite fear. I think it's also about authenticity. And I think courage is about claiming and expressing your power. And this is particularly true in spaces where it may not always have been welcome. And I can only imagine that as a Black woman, your power might not always have been welcome in the spaces you were in. And so I would love to hear from you just about, how you express and embody your courage and what some of the challenges are that you've faced around that.
Well, as you can imagine, there've been many.
Yeah.
So it's hard to kind of, pinpoint one. But
sure.
There've been lots of times that I've just felt like I've had to be the voice. You feel like you walk into a courtroom, and many times I've walked into a courtroom and been the only Black lawyer. And sometimes those were civil courtrooms and not just criminal courtrooms. But particularly in criminal courtrooms, the only other Black people you may see may be the people who are accused, who have on orange jumpsuits. That's what we wear in Louisiana. And so, people viewing you a certain way because you happen to be Black. And sometimes it can be, difficult. And I've always tried to be the person. I don't want you to consider me to be the exception. I'm no different than the man standing in the well, the jury well. waiting for his case to be called. We probably have similar backgrounds, but somewhere along the way, we made two different choices, and that life is,
yes,
a series of choices. And so I always tried to, having had family members who were incarcerated as well, I always tried to treat people who were accused respectfully, with dignity. And I think that has, benefited me in my career. I often think about, and I don't know if this has anything to do with courage, but I often think about when I was in the courtroom in Caddo, the bailiff used to come to me all the time. Now, I wasn't the only Black prosecutor. There were other Black prosecutors in the room, but she'd come to me and she'd say, "Daphne, would you go outside and talk to these witnesses?" And I'd say, "Madam Bailiff, those are not my witnesses." And she'd say, "But you talk to them better." And, that always made me, it made me mad because it would add to my workload, but it always made me feel good as well, because it made me feel like that I could talk to anybody, that I was every man. And that's the way I wanted to be perceived, and that's the way I wanted to treat people. I wanted to treat everybody respectfully, whether you were white or you were Black, you were the accused, you were the judge, you were the DA. And sometimes that took courage, that took courage to be able to stand and say that, hey, that's not what we're going to do. Or we're not going to treat this kid any differently from that kid, because this kid is no different from that kid.
I'm almost thinking that maybe it's not an example of courage, but it's almost like it's an outcome of your courage that the bailiff would then say that to you. That is a result of your courage that she, maybe, I'm sure, witnessed.
Yeah. Maybe. And I always say the highest compliment, that I received was from a clerk in court who said to me, "One thing about you, Ms. Robinson, you might be hard, but you treat everybody the same." And treating everybody the same. And I learned this lesson from a judge, that, treating everybody the same doesn't mean that, you get one and you get one. Treating everybody who is accused the same is giving folks what they need at the time. You might be charged with, an armed robbery, a serious offense, and you might just need to be locked up. And then, then there's the other person who may be charged with something similar, but they have a drug problem, they have a mental health problem, and there may be different things that need to happen for that person. And so, so the system, I don't like, and that's a part of the problem with the system, is that we want to say that it's fair. Well, it's not supposed to be fair. It's supposed to be just. So the person accused is supposed to get what they need at the time. And we are so busy trying to be fair. Well, I gave that person 100 years. I need to give you 100 years. Well, maybe this person didn't need 100 years. Maybe
this is the difference between equality.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
this
equality.
is the difference between equality and equity.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So
I'm sure by the time you got to the School of Public Health, the Rollins School of Public Health, you knew exactly what the difference was between equality and equity, because you had seen it.
Definitely.
I want to go to our last question, because this is, well, I love all the questions, but I do get excited by this one. This last question is about vision. And, you clearly have vision, as they say. But I want to hear about your vision for the future of public health. I want to hear about your vision for the future of our criminal justice system.
That's a lot.
I also want to hear about your personal vision for your own future. Like what is next for Daphne Robinson?
Well, when it comes to the future of public health, I'm concerned. I'm gravely concerned about the future of public health. We're at a very trying time, and I don't believe that we're going to stay here. I mean, I just can't bring myself to believe that we're going to stay here. but how broken will the system be by the time we get to another place? By the time we get to the place that we're supposed to be. Now, what I want to believe, what I want the vision to be, and I was chatting with my brother about this, that in history, we'll say that we've been through multiple reconstructions. There was a civil war, and then there was reconstruction as a country. And then there was the civil rights movement, and then there was the Civil Rights Act that was passed as a result. And then it was, years of never believing that we would have an African-American president, and then we did. And so,
yes.
So I feel like that this period of just intense strife and difficulty that we are enduring right now is going to result in a reconstructive period. That's what I'm hoping. And who knows? Maybe I'm hoping that reconstructive period will lead to us maybe one day really having universal health care in this country, because people see what it's like, and that other countries, other industrialized countries, all the industrialized countries have some form of universal health care, and we don't. And so I'm just hoping that through this horrible time, this very dark time, that there will be light at the end of that tunnel that is reconstruction. As it relates to the criminal justice system. I have not
heard anyone... Wait, before you go on to the criminal justice system, I have not heard anyone frame it that way, like frame it in terms of that there will be a reconstruction after this. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate that framing. So thank you so much for sharing that. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard anyone else talk about it that way.
Sure. I'm sure I heard somebody else say it as well, but
you might have heard someone else say it, but you're my source.
yeah, but I'm claiming it. And
okay, so for the criminal justice system,
right? Sadly, I think we still have just an incredibly long way to go in the criminal justice system. And I say that as someone who was there yesterday. I represented someone, a family member, who I was asked to help, and this is totally in a different parish, but it's so the same everywhere you go. That here's a prosecutor who's overwhelmed, has 100 cases on the docket for the day, public defenders who don't know what's going on because they have so many cases that they can't keep up with, a judge who's just waiting for you to present your next case. But nobody, and you can see, when you've done it long enough, you can see mental health issues on people's faces, and you can see behavioral health and substance abuse issues like a spirit, on people. And nobody asks. Nobody seems to care. And all the people that were in jail when I walked in there went back to jail. And nobody asked if, do we think we're at a point where we can release this person safely back into the community with some parameters around them to make sure that they don't commit any more crimes until they get back to court for their court date. So every time I go into a courtroom, I just realize that we have not learned. And when I wrote about it in my book, I equated with the iceberg, that it is just this. Well, I equated it with, and that might have been a talk I did. I don't know. It's somebody, but I equated with an airplane that's on autopilot, and it is so much trouble to take the airplane, the car off autopilot, because then I've got to do it manually. I've got to turn it. I've got to turn it myself. But if I leave it on autopilot, it's just going to go. And that's where we are. The criminal justice system is just on autopilot.
Even if it's going in totally the wrong direction.
Right, exactly.
It's like, it's going. It's like,
right. It's moving, and we're just moving cases from one day to the next day or to a month from now. And that, it is so troubling to me. And but I will say there are jurisdictions that do it well. there are jurisdictions, and most of the time they're in the West, and, maybe some in the East as well. But it takes progressive leader. It takes courage. The conversation that we're having. It takes progressive, and I don't say progressive in terms of, conservative or liberal. It just takes someone who has the courage to say that, hey, we've got to take this off autopilot, and we have got to put in the time and the energy that it takes to evaluate each of these cases and give people what they need, not just being fair and giving folks 50 years because the statute says they get 50 years, but really evaluating what's wrong with this person and why we keep seeing him in this courtroom. And what is it going to take in order for us to stop seeing this person in the courtroom? And like I said, some jurisdictions are doing it. I don't want to say that it's all lost. And I hope that those jurisdictions that are doing it well will continue to become models for the rest of the country.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anyone who thinks that the criminal justice system and the public health system aren't, closely connected and intertwined, doesn't understand either one.
The systems are in such silos, the public health system, the health system, and the criminal justice system, as well as the mental health system. And all of those systems really need to be working together. And until we get that done, we'll keep getting what we get. Let's
go back to the question about what is your vision for your own future? What's next for Daphne Robinson?
I think what's next for Daphne is I also have a consulting company, Daphne Robinson Training and Consulting. And, my goal in doing that work is to bring policy and law together with community. And how do we make public health accessible to community? How do we make systems respond better to folks that live in the community? And so one of the projects that I've been working on is a doula program. For a lot of the work I do now is in maternal child health. And so a doula program that is integrated in the health system. So we're bringing equity to the health system, helping women, particularly women of color, and women who have low socioeconomic status, helping them get the kind of support and care that they need and the kind of empowerment that they need to address the issues that are significant during the course of pregnancy. And so that's one of the projects that I've been working on in my work as well as in my business. And I've also been very disturbed by what I've seen as, I guess, as an attack on the 92% who African-American women in this country who supported an African-American woman for president. And so many women have lost their jobs and lost their employment. And so through my company, I've been trying to connect with women, professional women, women of color, particularly those who are lawyers and in the legal field, and helping them figure out how to make the pivot that I was able to make. And so we are having a challenge, and that challenge is going to happen in March of this year, particularly for this demographic of women. And during that 3-day period of time, I want to be able to bring the resources that women will need in order to become ready to go after government contracts, local, state, and federal contracts. So I'm excited about that work. Beautiful. And I hope that, that work will continue to grow in the future.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. I know we had a few technical difficulties, but we dealt with them, and here we are.
And we made it to the end.
We made it work.
Right.
Yay.
Yeah. So I can't wait.
So I really appreciate you coming on the...
How close are you to finishing your book?
Well, I have a full draft that I'm ready to send to my writing coach and then hopefully start looking for publishers.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah,
well, getting there. Good. I'm getting there.
Yeah, I think my professor that I had, he's passed away since, but he read my book. He thought it was wonderful, and he did not want me to self-publish at all. He was like, "You need to go find a publisher." And so if I do it again, I would try and find a publisher, because that's the only way you're gonna make any money. Although the independent publisher I used said I sold the most books of anybody that she had worked with before. So I don't know if that said.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So, and at the time it was in the middle. I mean, my book was published at the beginning of COVID. And so Clubhouse was really big. Right. And so we did a lot of Clubhouse meetings. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's great. I mean, there are so many ways to do it, right? So many ways to get your story out there. So,
yeah.
I want to make sure that I don't forget to ask you about the best way for listeners to connect with you. How should people connect?
Yeah, I mean, the best way to connect with me would be on LinkedIn. You can send me a message there.
Great.
Or you can send me an email at daphne.robinson.jd@gmail.com.
Great. So I will put your LinkedIn link and also your email in our show notes. So it's really easy for people to find them and connect with you there.
Great.
Well, thank you so much, Daphne. It's been wonderful to talk to you. Sometimes courage is telling the truth about a system you once believed in. Sometimes courage is refusing to confuse fairness with justice. Sometimes courage is stepping away from the courtroom so you can do the deeper work of healing, advocacy, and change. Daphne Robinson reminds us that courage can look like clarity, accountability, and the willingness to take broken systems off autopilot. And that even when systems feel immovable, naming what's broken is the first step toward change. If this conversation made you think about your own leadership or the women leading inside your organization, this is exactly the work we do through Courageous Public Health. We partner with organizations to offer facilitated, interactive virtual workshops for women leaders in public health, turning courage into a leadership skill so it can become an organizational strength. Interested? Reach out. Links to connect with us are in the show notes. Until our next episode, stay courageous. Thank you for listening to the Courageous Public Health Podcast. Visit courageouspublichealth.com to find the show notes for each episode and learn how to connect with us.